Welcome back, everyone. This is Mr. H, the fine arts teacher, and today we're going to be continuing with the last drawing that we'd created. This is going to be the basic forms using two-point perspective. And remember, we drew 5 different forms. All of them were rectangular or cube type forms, and they were all drawn using two-point perspective. So what we're going to be doing in this next video is we're going to be adding some complexity to these drawings. And you're going to be drawing a whole bunch of different things. And it's going to use all the same techniques that you've already learned, but adapting your knowledge into how to draw things that are a little bit more complex. So we're going to begin by drawing a stacked object that's going to pierce through another object, come out from above it, and turn into an archway. After that, we will learn how to create kind of like windows and doors, and also how to create kind of like a pool on the top of one of these forms. So I hope you enjoy the video, and remember, you can always pause, rewind, and catch up at your own pace. Okay, so your first step when working with adding the additional more complex details to this image is to grab your ruler, and you're going to be putting your ruler so that you have a line that starts from the top of this object, and then it's going to come up and butt up against the underside of this one. It'll pass through a hole there, and it's going to come out above. So we do want to make sure that this line is perfectly vertical, so you're going to want to compare it to other nearby lines like this one and this one, or this one, or the edge of your paper, depending on where your ruler is at, and maybe which way it's flipped around. So I'm going to go ahead and begin with this straight up and down line, and it's going to start on the top of that lower object. It's going to stop before I get to the edge of the underside of this object, and then it's going to come out above right over here. I'm going to go until I get a short distance from the top of the paper, 1/4 inch or so. Now you'll notice that I did not make this line start from this edge. I'm making sure that it feels like it's sitting on the top of this object rather than right at the edge of it. And I did the same thing right over here. I made sure that I did not go all the way until I hit that diagonal. I stopped a little bit short of it. So this is the equivalent to this line or this line or this line for this object we're going to add. And it's going to look like a big, huge column or pillar. So the next step that we're going to do is that we are going to draw the lines that go towards our vanishing points. Now typically you'd have 2 lines that would go towards your right vanishing point and 2 lines that would go towards your left. That's true of any of these objects we've drawn. The only thing that's going to be a little different is that we're going to have one more that'll be up here going towards our right and left vanishing points. So you can start with either the top or the bottom. I'm going to start with the bottom, and I'm going to make this a very short line because I am going to want to make it look like it's a skinny, squarish pillar. And then up here, I'm going to make it go just a little bit further. And the reason for that is because we're going to try to turn part of this line into the hole that this pillar is going through. And you'll see how to do that in a moment. Now, for this one up here, we're going to go quite a ways longer. So we're still going towards that right vanishing point, but we're going to go all the way until we get above this object right here. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to draw a little line right here, slightly longer one right here, and then just another short one up here. And those are going to go towards my left vanishing point. Now remember, we're still using the same trick that I taught you in that first part of this drawing. And that's that if it's not a straight up and down line, it needs to line up with your vanishing point. So with the exception of the vertical lines that we're drawing, these straight up and down ones, everything else has to either go towards the right or the left vanishing point. All right, and remember, for this one up here, it's going to be a nice short one, just like we did for that one, but aiming downwards instead. Okay. Now, the next step that we're going to do is we're going to create the vertical lines that we'd have like these ones. It's going to start from up here, it's going to go down, it's going to go to here, and continue all the way down until I get to the bottom. And then it'll go all the way up like that, and we'll stop before we get to the top. So I turn my ruler around, and that way I can compare it to the nearest vertical line, which is this one that we did just a moment ago. So I'm adjusting it very carefully until it is perfectly vertical, and then drawing that line. And if this little diagonal didn't go far enough, we can use our ruler just to make it go a little bit further. Okay. Now, by the way, there will be some parts we're going to erase. So we're going to make this column non-transparent. So in other words, it's not see-through. So you are going to want to erase anything that the column would be blocking your view of. And I'm going to stop before I get up to that line. So which lines are we going to erase? Well, we're going to erase the part of the box that's hidden by the pillar right there. And we're going to erase the part of the box that's hidden by the pillar right here. If you accidentally erase a part of a line that you intend to keep, just put it back in. Not a big deal. All right, so the next step is to create the hole that this pillar is disappearing into so that it really looks like it's piercing through this object and coming out above. Now, notice that all 4 lines for the bottom of that rectangular form, all 4 of these lines are going towards your vanishing points, right? Well, the same is going to be true of any hole cut in the bottom of it too. So this line is going towards our right vanishing point, this line is going towards our left vanishing point, and so we're going to make sure that the line from right over here on the left side goes to our right vanishing point, and this line right over here goes towards our left vanishing point from the right hand side. And now you've got the appearance of this pillar going through this hole and then popping out above. And now we're going to start working on completing the archway. So for the archway, we're going to make a line that goes towards our right vanishing point from where we stopped this one. And I'm trying really hard to make sure that the thickness of the archway looks basically like it's just pulling a 90-degree angle, you know, where it's just the same thickness continuing this way. And then we're going to draw 2 more straight up and down lines. These are going to be for the other side, the right side of the archway. So we got our first vertical line, and I'm going to kind of just adjust my ruler so that it looks like this thickness right here is the same as this thickness on the pillar. And after I feel like I've got that looking good, I'll draw that line. Now, one thing you might notice is as things get further away in space, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. That is absolutely correct. So if you notice that this pillar seems to be getting skinnier looking as it goes that way, or the top of the archway, I should say, that is correct. That's what's something called foreshortening. Foreshortening is that when something is facing towards you or away from you, it either looks like it's getting bigger or smaller depending on which end is further from you, the viewer. Now, you'll notice that we have a left and a right side to this pillar right here, but we don't have a left and a right side here. We just have the right side. So the next step that we're going to do is we're going to draw just a very short little line right here from this corner, and it's going to go towards our left vanishing point. And it doesn't have to be super long. Once you've got that little short line going towards your left vanishing point, line up your ruler with this corner and your right vanishing point. And then you're just drawing a line right here. So it's not going to go all the way to where it was starting from. Okay, you lined up your ruler with this corner and your vanishing point, but all you have to do is just draw it right here. So you've got now the front and the underside of your pillar. And now where it hit this little short diagonal, that tells you where your straight up and down line is going to be for the left side of the pillar. And that, folks, is how you draw an object that is stacked on top of another object, piercing through an object, turning into an archway, and then ending on the top of another object. So we are going to add some additional details to our structures here. And I'm going to give you a handful of different options. You have to do at least 2 examples of cutouts. They could be on the tops, they could be on the sides, totally up to you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to draw a basic window and door, and I'm also going to show you how to make kind of like a pool in the top of one of these objects. So what we're going to start with here is we're going to start with the pool. I'm going to make the pool on the top of this one, And all 4 lines of the pool's edge need to go to vanishing points because all 4 lines of the top go to vanishing points. So it's just like drawing the hole that we had that pillar was going through. So all you have to do is to go ahead and make one line going towards your right vanishing point. Then we'll have 2 lines that go towards your left vanishing point. And then 1 more going towards your right vanishing point. If you have any lines that went a little bit too far, yeah, just erase them. If something got erased by accident that you intended to keep, just use your ruler to draw it back. All right, now to give it the feeling like we're seeing down into the pool, we're going to make a straight up and down line. And the straight up and down line can only be within the space of the pool itself. So if it's going down, you don't want to draw one from here because that would be going up instead of down. You can't draw one from here because it couldn't be inside of the pool itself. And you can't draw one from here because it can't be inside of the pool itself. It would have to exit the inside of this pool shape here. So the only corner that we can use to draw the inside of the pool with would be this corner right here. And it's not going to be a super deep pool because, well, I don't have a lot of top to this to be able to draw it real deep. All right, so that's as deep as my pool is going to go. And so to make it look like there's a left, a right, and a bottom of the pool, we're going to draw lines that go towards our vanishing points now. And we're going to stop as soon as we get to the edge of the pool shape. So as you can see, we've now got a left and a right side of the pool, and we got a bottom of the pool. I think my my corner was a little off right there, but it's not too bad. All right, now the last thing we'd want to do is just to show the water line in the pool. So show how deep or how close to the edge the water is coming inside the pool. And so I'll just draw a line that goes towards my right vanishing point right over here, and a line that goes towards my left vanishing point right over there. And I can even put in a little bit of shading to kind of give it the vibe like there's water in that pool. Do you have to do the shading? Nah, you can leave it off if you want. Your choice. All right, now once we are done with this, we can add some other details onto this structure, or you can add these details onto any of these other structures. It doesn't matter to me. So the next thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to draw windows and doors on this one. So the easiest way to begin would be to mark the front corner of the box with 2 lines. And these lines are going to be defining the height of the top of the window and the bottom of the window. And then what we're going to do is we're going to line up our ruler with this mark and our left and right vanishing points in order to find the height of the top and bottom of our windows. Now, if you want it to look like a skyscraper and you want the window to go all the way to the edge of the building, that's fine. You can do that. I'm going to make them stop before they get to the edge of the building, so it looks more like a residential window. Okay. We can do the same thing over here on the other side. But what if you want a door as well? Well, we can draw the top of our doorway lining up with that mark, and then just draw our window that goes as far as you want it to go on that side of the building. And then what we'll do is we will do the same thing here for the bottom of this window. We don't need a line in the middle of the door, so we're just going to only put it in for the window itself. And then we can draw in our straight up and down lines for the sides of the windows and the sides of the door. If you want to compare your ruler to the nearest straight up and down line to make sure it's really going perfectly vertical, you can do that. So there's a window on the left side of the building. Now we can do the left and right side of our doorway. I think the door needs to go a little bit wider personally, so I'm just going to lengthen that up a little bit and maybe even erase part of the width of that window. So don't be afraid of adjusting things if you feel like, maybe it's not quite what you had in mind or it's not working out. There is nothing wrong with making changes and edits and redoing things and fixing things. That's not a sign of failure. That's a sign of you shooting for the best that you can produce. So I'll never object to seeing some unerasable marks or some barely visible marks if you needed to move something in this. All right, now you've got your door, you got your windows. If you want to add a little doorknob, you can just do a little circle. If this was a bigger drawing, we'd probably get more technical and, draw a little bit more, but I think that serves our purpose. By the way, if you want to draw cross pieces for your window, you can make a little mark halfway between these two, and you can use that to help to guide little cross pieces for your window if you want to make it look even more like a residential window. Naturally, these are going towards your vanishing point, just like any other lines that are not vertical. And then you can add some cross pieces going in the other direction. By the way, if your windows are getting less tall as they go back into space, just like your walls are, then the spaces between these little dividing lines will also be getting smaller too. So the biggest gap would be here, and then a little smaller, and a little smaller. And I always make a little mark first, and that way I can do some adjustments. And that way, if I'm not perfectly thrilled with the placement, I can always move it until I am happy with what I have. So let's go ahead and draw those. Okay. Now we'll make some over here on this side. So I've got 1, 2, 3 marks. All right, cool. All right, so that is our condo here with a little pool on top. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you here on this design is how I can make kind of an opening on these two sides and maybe see some of the interior space. So I'm going to start with the same sort of thing I did right along the front edge of this building. I'm going to define where the top and bottom of the opening is going to be. So I just made a little mark right here and a little mark right here. Those two marks are going to line up with your vanishing points in order to define the tops and bottoms of those openings. And I'll do the same thing on the other side, still lining it up with that mark I made on the corner of the building and our vanishing point in order to make the opening over here on the other side. And as I'm sure you have already guessed, we just need to finish off those openings with our vertical lines. I'm going to flip my ruler around so I can compare to this side. Now, one thing I noticed is I feel like this line was going a little crooked compared to the side of the building here. I'm going to fix that before I go any further. When you're doing interior spaces, the precision especially matters. So I am going to make sure that I am seeing a really perfectly executed gap here. And that way I'm not going to run into any problems. And if you end up having a problem where some of your lines aren't working out right, that either your lines weren't perfectly vertical or they weren't going to your vanishing points perfectly. All right, so now we've got our openings completed, and our next step is we're going to go from this corner and this corner towards this vanishing point, and from this corner and this corner towards that vanishing point. And that's just to separate the ceiling and floor from the walls. All right. Now, what might happen if you have one of your sides being distinctly longer or shorter than the other, and mine are fairly similar, so it's not happening here. But let's say that this line went longer, you might actually see the back corner where these two walls meet. over here on this side, or if this side was longer, you might see it happening somewhere over here. It's not happening on my piece. I can show you where it would be, but it's going to be blocked by the pillar, so we're not going to really leave the lines. But if I just extend this one very lightly, and if I extended this one very lightly, then it looks like my pillar, or sorry, the back corner where those two walls meet would be right about here, where this line and this line would meet. So we're not going to be drawing it because it's hidden behind that front pillar for this object. But like I said, if one of your sides is distinctly longer or shorter, you may end up seeing that back corner. All right, now, if you decide you'd like to, you are welcome to continue to create more details. You can create, things on the underside here. You can draw more windows or doors. You can draw more details inside the building even if you wanted to. But as soon as you've got your stacked object, pierced object, archway, and at least two sides that have things drawn on them, like windows, doors, or maybe even a pool, then you have got this second portion of this drawing complete, and you can turn this in for the 2-point perspective basic forms advanced techniques assignment. So if you want to continue to work, that's fine. If you want to stop where you are right now, that's great too. And what we're going to be doing next is you are going to be learning how to do one of several different choices for your major project. And you have a number of different options that you can pick from. So it could be, creating a custom home. It could be creating a city in 2-point perspective. It could be creating a car driving down the street with a building in the background or something. Or it could be something that you make up completely on your own without even looking at one of the videos. So I will have walkthrough videos that show you how to do a variety of different things, but you are not limited to those things. You can choose to create something unique to you instead. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you continue to look at the rest of the videos in this playlist, you're going to see the other options that you can either follow along with and copy, or be inspired by and kind of add your own flavor to, or things that you can just watch and then figure out how to do something completely different if you'd like.